now, tomorrow, and always. And let's be straight here about what's happening. The president is waging war on American-born children, on immigrants with humanitarian parole, those seeking asylum, and hardworking members of our community who just want to provide for their families. Trump is intentionally cultivating a culture of fear and mistrust where parents are afraid to go to work or send their children to school, where people are afraid to go to the doctor or access public services. Our job at DOJ is clear: to safeguard the rights of everyone who calls this state home, no matter their background, their status, or their zip code, period, full stop. And we have been very active in litigation against a Trump administration that has been blatant and brazen and consistent and frequent in its lawlessness. We've brought 65 lawsuits so far against the Trump administration. In less than that many weeks, we are bringing more than one lawsuit per week. And of the 65 lawsuits we filed against the federal administration, several have been related to immigration and our immigrant community, so let me talk about those for a moment. We have protected birthright citizenship and the 24,000 babies born each year in California while our litigation continues. We have blocked efforts to tie unrelated immigration enforcement conditions to federal funding, including funds that protect against and respond to terrorism, funds that support victims of crime, and funds that support and maintain our roads, our rails, and our public transit. We would not agree to those conditions because they're unlawful and they're not who we are. We preserved access to public benefits for health care and disability and nutrition programs for our immigrant communities. We prevented the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services from sharing personal health data with the Department of Homeland Security for immigration enforcement. We are protecting their data and ensuring that data that is for eligibility determination is only used for eligibility determination as required by law. And we ended the unlawful federalization of California's National Guard troops for civilian law enforcement in Southern California.
Yes.
So I think a couple of things I want to say is that our cases matter. When we bring a case and we stop unlawful action from the Trump administration and we get a court order, in our cases, the administration is following those orders. So the courts are alive and well, orders are being followed, orders are changing conduct so that unlawful conduct ends and compliant conduct occurs. I also want to say that on some of our biggest cases, including our defense of Proposition 50, our National Guard case, our tariffs case, we won at the United States Supreme Court. So I know that there is some concern, and I've heard it said, that if you might win at the district court level, you might win at the intermediate appellate level, but when it gets to the U.S. Supreme Court, that's a rubber stamp for Trump. And that has not been the case. We've been able to make our case and advance our legal arguments and present the facts and win, yes, even in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. In addition to our litigation, we've also supported the litigation of others. We call those friend of the court briefs or amicus briefs, and we filed such a brief in United Farm Workers versus Nome, urging the court to block unlawful stops and warrantless arrests in the Central Valley. We filed multiple amicus briefs opposing a federal policy that mandates the indefinite detention of many undocumented immigrants without the opportunity for a bond hearing.
Yes.
This is an unprecedented reinterpretation of immigration law that goes against Congress's intent and the right to due process. We are seeing repeated, blatant abuses of power, and you have my word that I and my fellow Democratic Attorneys General will continue to fight the illegal actions in court at every turn. The unfortunate truth about part of our structure of federalism is that California cannot block federal agencies from conducting legal immigration enforcement, and we generally can't regulate or restrict ICE activities in public areas. But it's also true, and it's important to point out, that California's law, SB 54, the California Values Act, is very clear that except in certain narrow circumstances, state and local law enforcement cannot use taxpayer money to enforce federal immigration law. So for the state of California, tested in court that it's completely constitutional. The federal government is free to do their job if they do it lawfully, but they cannot force us to do their job for them. At the same time, the federal government does not have carte blanche to do whatever they want to whomever they want. They still have to follow the law. They still have to abide by the Constitution. So we are monitoring ICE raids and immigration enforcement to ensure that they do. We've launched an online portal that allows Californians to report potentially unlawful activity by federal agents. Anyone can submit information through this portal. We encourage you to do so. It's at oag.ca.gov/report misconduct. We've received many reports of potential misconduct, and we're grateful for those. That's how we can review, evaluate, and take action as appropriate. Finally, my team and I have worked diligently to ensure immigrant communities and those that serve them know their rights and protections guaranteed under the law. We've been in roundtables and places and spaces up and down the state, making sure that we are sharing and clarifying what our community's rights are. We've published a long list of advisories, guidance, and bulletins that are all available in multiple languages, English, Spanish, several others, on our website. So please, if you find those resources helpful, please access them from our website. I encourage you to check them out and share them with anyone that you think can benefit from them. Finally, under California law, my team has the authority to inspect immigration detention centers.
Yes.
For the most part, these are for-profit, privately run immigration detention centers. And when I was a legislator, I authored the bill to ban them in California.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that part of the bill also banned for-profit private prisons. But the part that banned the for-profit private immigration detention centers was struck down in court. And so they continue to be able to exist. And since then, I've done everything in my power to create accountability and transparency and ensure that the health, safety, and welfare of the human beings that are being detained are uplifted and protected. We have examined conditions of confinement, the standard of care provided, and the impacts on the due process rights of individuals. We've put out 4 reports, and we're preparing our 5th this year on what we see happening in the detention centers operating in our state. Over the years, sadly and tragically, we've found many concerning issues related to inadequate medical and mental health care and barriers to access to counsel, among other things. Just last week, I filed an amicus brief in a case opposing the conditions of confinement at Adelanto ICE Processing Center, one of the largest immigration detention centers in the United States. During our inspections at Adelanto, my team witnessed shockingly inadequate medical care, a failure to accommodate people with disabilities, disturbingly unsafe and unsanitary conditions, and a lack of basic necessities. These vile conditions have been exacerbated as a result of the Trump administration's mass deportation campaign. We've asked the court to review our findings and end these civil rights violations. This federal administration has been volatile. While we don't know exactly what's to come in the next few years, while we cannot stop the expansion of detention or interfere with federal immigration enforcement and detention, we do know that we're better off when we have the facts and the data, when we have sunlight and transparency, when we know what is happening in these detention centers, so that our policymakers can take appropriate action. As AG, it's my job to fight for those who are vulnerable, pushed to the side, taken advantage of, hurt, and abused. To pursue justice for all, no matter where those people are from, how they look, what language they speak. That includes the 11 million immigrants who call California home, including my favorite immigrant, my own mother, Cynthia Bonta. It's no coincidence that California is the most diverse state in the nation and also the fourth largest economy in the world. Our diversity is our story, our diversity is our strength. The next few years will be challenging, there is no doubt about it. But we ought not be hopeless because we are not helpless. We aren't powerless. Not as long as we stay engaged, as long as we stay enraged at what's happening in the federal government, as long as we stand up and speak out, push back, fight back. Stay united in the fight for democracy, in the fight for freedom, and for justice for all. I have no doubt you will continue to fight. No doubt you'll continue to show up, just like you are today. So let me end where I began, with a huge thank you for your commitment, for your engagement, for your compassion, for your strength, for your courage. I know these days seem dark, but I also know that with that courage, with that fight, with that engagement, we will experience brighter days together ahead. Enjoy the rest of your convention. Thank you for having me.